Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. Well, I did promise I was going to do these updates on the Mosquito build, a monthly update, and I said I'd try sometimes to do it fortnightly if I could, so this is a fortnightly update. First time I've done it in less than a month. Wanted to talk about my slow progress, which is very slow, and explain why that was, one of the reasons anyway. A big reason is, I've spoken about this before, I'm not trying to make this sound like a positive because I don't think it is at all. But I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and it's all well and good, you know. So I think this word gets misused and misunderstood a lot, perfectionism, because it doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you're never happy with anything, that's what it basically means. And you're always finding fault. It's not a negative trait, I don't think. But it means that it's very difficult to please you. And I was saying to one of my modelling friends the other day that I sent him a picture of some of the parts you've just been looking at on my Mosquito cockpit I'm working on, which is taking forever. But the reason is, I said to him, you know, I do a bit of painting and a little bit of weathering here and there, and then I look at the parts and I think, oh yeah, that looks absolutely brilliant. Then I photograph it and zoom in really with a big zoom, and then I sort of see the tiniest defect or the tiniest sort of perhaps I've got the wrong colour or I've overlapped somewhere. I mean, I had this on the armrests of the seat, of the pilot's seat, and I've had about 6 attempts to get it right. It's right now, but I've had it gone back, and then I've got too much of the dark green, then I've got too much of the cockpit green, and I've just got this slight overlay of just a fraction. This is something you will never see. It's ridiculous. I know it's ridiculous. I know it is. But I just can't let it go. And it's when I zoom it in, I'm thinking, oh, that looks, you know, I do show my kits zoomed in a lot, too much actually, far too much, and I've got to stop doing it really, for my own sanity. And it's like anything, you zoom in, you know, you could have the most beautiful wife or husband or whatever. If you zoom in with a big enough zoom, the parts of their body will look, you know, even their most attractive lips or eyes will look horrible if you zoom them in enough. Anything will look horrible if you zoom it enough. So, so this is what's been going on, and I went back, I started correcting, and I'm thinking, you know what, if this is somebody standing at an exhibition, even at Telford, really close, they're not going to see any of these things you're worried about. And this is my problem, this is why I'm dragging my feet really. It's not that I'm not enjoying the build, because I am. But I think there's two problems. The one I've just alluded to, and the second problem is this business about which I did mention briefly before, about all the aftermarket, the internal zoom cockpit set, which I got the Edwards set. Now, as I discussed before, there are parts of this I've decided I think are stupid and really so fiddly and so ridiculous they're not going to be used. But even on the ones that I think are valid and worth putting in, you still end up with a dilemma. I'm going to show you an example here. I've got in front of me, by the way, before I get into that, I've got in front of me, look at this, as I said recently on my little post on YouTube, I broke the 11th commandment. I'm going to be in a lot of trouble, aren't I? Painting on the sprue, oh my lord, people are going to be writing into me. By the way, this business about putting a little tag on it, I don't normally do that. In fact, I don't think I've ever done it before, but because this kit has got so many sprue frames, there are so many of them that and you can see, that gives you a hint, doesn't it, just how many there are, that I've had to do it really for a quick reference, because otherwise, you know, from a distance, you're constantly hunting around trying to read the actual, there's the U there, upside down, that's what, trying to read it, where is it, oh, it's there. Well, it's all very well, but when you've got this many to hunt through, having a quick reference like this is actually very useful, so that's why I've done this time. And I think any other kit that's got a lot of parts, that's the time to do it, it's worthwhile. Because you just, even from a distance, you can grab it without having to really think about it. Anyway, back to the point I was making. Painting on the sprue. To some people that is a crime against nature and marks you out as a not very serious modeller. However, I always retouch them, so I don't leave these, when I cut them off here at the sprue gate contact point, I always retouch the paint so it's not left. And the way Tamiya design it, it's often at a point where, and they are good at this, I've got to say, it's one of the things I like about Tamiya, they choose generally 9 out of 10 of their sprue gate contact points are not in stupid places that are obvious. They put them in very sensible places. But you can see there I've already got a little bit of a variety of different parts, different colours. On the other sprue, this is what I'm going to show you in a second, but going back to my original point, here you can see I've got the seats, the pilot's actual seats, to look black, but they're not, as you can tell it's dark green. You know, I've pre-done those, and there's going to be a lot more that needs painting here. But look at, here's the one I really want to talk about in terms of cockpit detail. Now, I'm going to have to move my pilot for a second. We'll look at him again in a moment in a bit more detail. So I've got 3 figures to show you. But let's have a look at this, and let's talk about this dilemma that you have with photo etch. So here we've got, zoom it right in so you can see this clearly. Here we've got the radio, okay? The radio. So, sorry, this part here, this is the one we want. So this is K52, part K52. Now that's the kit part, which is okay, it's really nice, you know. Now then we have got, I'm going to put right next to it, I'm going to put the Edward Zoom, the photo etch version. Now can you see the difference? Obviously this is kind of pre-painted and it's all printed up, isn't it? Rather than painted. I think the screen printed actually. You can see that you've got a lot of detail there. Now the beauty of this is the actual screen, which is green there, as you can see, on the Edward part. It's blank, but Tamiya provides you with the blip. It's the radar screen, obviously. And they actually provide you with, so I'm going to put this away. So there's the seats and things. Get to focus. I'll be using them very shortly. So going back to this, you've got the radar screen there. There we go. Our radar screen. And Tamiya very helpfully actually do give you a decal for the actual blip of the enemy aircraft that they might be tracking, just in case for their own safety, you know. And it comes on the. See if I can show it to you. I think it's always better to show things than just talk about them. See if I can find that. I think I can. You see this? Or can I? No, it's there, because I've seen it. I think it's hiding over here somewhere. Oh, it's there. It's more obvious than I thought it was. It's quite small. So, just above where my thumb is now, if you look very closely, I'll try it in the middle here. That is the little screen for the radar. Can you see it? Here? Here. With the plot, you can see that it's got the radar trace coming back. So, point being, obviously I can actually do a bit of a combo here. What I can do is, I can use that decal, put it on top of the green screen that's provided by Edward to give the proper trace, take the benefit of the rest of the detail that Edward have provided, and that means I'll have to shave down the surface. This is where the time-consuming bit comes in, really. You're going to have to modify that surface here, shave the little details, the raised details off it to make it flat, which is a bit unfortunate. It's a shame in a way that Edward can't, I don't know, think of a way around this. It just involves a lot of labour. See, we've got the same thing here with the radio. Let me show you this. This is, again, very pertinent. So, just underneath where my little finger is, you're going to see the radio. Says, actually, my little finger is, yeah, there, this. I'm not doing too well with the focus. The radio, here we go, so that's the radio set screen. Now if I show you the Edward photo etch for the radio set screen, it's mighty impressive, he says, and he's lost it. There it is. So I'm going to put, again, I'll put it side by side so we can actually have the comparison. So you can see them absolutely together. So there is the radio screen. Obviously you've got the grey plastic, which is obviously not going to look as good, but you can see there's a lot of detail on that radio screen. Now, I think that Tamiya have again, yes I'm right, they have again provided a little decal, just bear with me a second, a little decal here, there, just above the finger, whoops, there we go, just above the finger, which again is for the all the dial positions, all the frequencies and stations on the radio set. So this is where you have this sort of dilemma about combining them, and I think this is what I'm going to end up doing with some of these ones that can be seen, because some of the Eduard photo etch is really good when it's got this printed detail on it. So I'm finding it difficult though to decide. Those are more obvious ones where you'd say yes, of course you should use that, really get the advantage of it because it's so well printed. And again, then you've got the instrumentation. Just finally, last look at this one. You've got the instruments as well, for the flight instruments for the pilot. And again, on the bottom right, as you look at it here. So, you know, and then you've got the ferrules that go around it. Same over on that side. So some really nice stuff there. Probably going to use that as well. It gets more complicated when you get down to some of these other parts where you start to question whether they really have a value versus the kit parts. And this is one of the things that I've been agonising over, not only with these, but also with things like the seat belts. So you get the HGW seat belt set, which are pretty fine little tiny belts here. I won't zoom in again because there's not much point in this stage. They're only in the... I think I've got to, because otherwise you won't know what I'm rambling about. So here's the HGW seat belts, and these have only just been cut off and haven't really been started properly yet. So, get some focus would be nice. Focus? Yes, there we go. So that's your pilot's seat belt there. And again, you've got a duplication here because you've got the set that comes with the kit as well, and you have to start making these decisions, and it's not always that clear. You know, you think, oh, aftermarket's going to be superior. It's not always, and it can be incredibly fiddly, and it can complicate the build. Sometimes they don't fit as well. This is what I'm very conscious of. Now, I've got to get my act together a little bit here and just make my mind up on these things a lot better, because I am dithering. There's no other word for it, really. Prevarication, I think, is the technical term. You know, and it's just taking too long. It really is taking way too long. So I think with the radio stuff, the one other thing that I should point out, and that this applies to many other kits and aftermarket kits as well, the one issue that you do have with the Eduard set, and that here we've got another load of controls for, I think it's for the transmitter radar, probably. The problem with the Eduard set is, though it's brilliantly printed, it doesn't have that 3D relief, and this is why people like to go to these 3D sets from, you know, people like Yahoo and is it Red Fox, and others. I'm not going to mention them all because some of them come from countries I don't support, but yeah, you know, these 3D relief, now they do make a lot more sense in a way than PE. This is why people think that PE has kind of had its day, really. I think it's still got, you can see there with that radar that will work well. Not so well on this one. I'll show you this part here. You can see that this has got, oops, trouble with my zoom again. It's sticky. But look at this one. We've got here something with a tremendous amount of 3D relief. Can we see those two? That one in particular. That one here. This one. Sorry. This one, this one. There's a lot of three-dimensional relief on that. Now that's a problem because the Eduard set is basically flat, effectively, and doesn't have the 3D elements of it. So again, you've got to decide what you want to do, and I'm not sure on that particular part that I'm going to go with the Eduard. I think I might go with the kit because it's just got this three-dimensional, and if you do a bit of dry brushing, you know, you can really make that pop in a way that it won't with the Eduard. And you don't want to have these cockpit interiors where it all just looks like an Eduard flat set that's been stuck on. It kind of looks a bit obvious, you know. So I'm thinking that this is why I'm thinking of kind of mixing and matching. And it's time consuming trying to figure out what's best and how it's going to fit and what I need to do to make it work. You know, when this cockpit is over, I tell you what, this build will speed up tremendously fast. It's going to be quite different, I think, in terms of the pace of it. But look at some of the detail on this kit. I don't know if I've sort of highlighted this one before. This is some of the wiring that goes on the side of the cockpit wall, fuselage. He says, get that to work. look at this. I mean, it's absolutely incredible, isn't it? Really, it's really, really nice, this wiring. Electrical harness, and a wiring set, junction box. Some really, really nice stuff's in the kit. So, again, don't be too eager, would be my advice, to just rush in and automatically use aftermarket. Because it does all kind of look the same, and it lacks that natural relief and natural differential that you get with 3D parts like you've got in the kit. And when they are very good, some of these kit parts are better than others. Some look a bit too softly moulded, like the radar. I think I'm definitely going to go with that Edward set for that, for sure. But there we go. Anyway, that's one thing I wanted to talk about. Another thing, just to give you an update, showing you, so we're still in the early stages, starting to jump around from stage to stage as I prepare things to sort of assemble them all together then. So we've got, what it starts asking you is whether you want to have the pilots and the navigator in the plane or not. Now this is a tricky one for me because they actually provide two navigators, one boarding the ladder and one sitting in his seat. And they're both fantastic. They're actually the better figure than the pilot figure is. But it's quite hard to decide really. So what I think I'm going to keep my options open if I can here, and almost build two options that I can interchange later. I'm not sure how that's going to work out in terms of the belts though. So again, it's tricky, isn't it? It's tricky. But let me show you what I'm talking about. You can see the parts, and then we will. It will make things a lot clearer. By the way, before I finish on seatbelts, here is the actual seatbelt set that I was just talking about, which, if I'm honest, I'm not that impressed with, actually. I'm not that impressed with this. It's nothing to do with the fact it's Edward, it's HGW, also in the Czech Republic, of course. But I don't know, it's just like it's on a piece of card, really, and I thought these were supposed to be actual fabric. It says fabric, but I don't think it's fabric, I'm not sure. Not sure about it at all. I'm not as convinced as when I bought it. Now I'm actually starting to use it. So, however, it's got to be easier to use than PE, so I suppose it's still got a value. Anyway, the figures. Let me first start off by, let's have a look at these figures, and I can show you what the sort of how the dilemma expands a little bit. So here we've got the pilot. So it's Percy Pickard. Squadron leader Percy Pickard, who of course sadly was lost, and they both were in this aircraft during the raid on the Amiens prison. And basically, this is actually seated without he hasn't got the seat cushioning yet, if you can see there, and his arms are not glued, so if it looks a little bit scrappy in place, that's because there's blue tack, little bits of blue tack. But you can see that it's coming together, and it gives me an idea of how it's going to look. Now, I actually think I'm going to have him sitting in the aircraft, but I'm not so sure about the navigator, and I'll show you why in a second. I think that he looks pretty good, actually. I mean, obviously not painted yet, This is why the arms are not glued, so I can have a little bit more flexibility for the painting, really. But it's got some good detail. He really has. The faces on these, I think, are particularly good, actually. Some facial quality. Bear in mind these are provided not aftermarket. These came in the kit, and it's easy to think they're not going to be that great. Really, you can easily assume that because they come in a lot of parts. They're not just two parts. There's about 7 parts to each figure, 6 or 7 parts. And they actually really do look good. I think once I've painted them up, they're going to look pretty amazing, really. I was quite looking forward to it. Now, then we've got Alan Broadley, the navigator, looking down at his map, because there is actually a map decal provided as well, by the way. But again, look at the quality of this figure is absolutely brilliant. I'm not going to put my hand on his head. His head's not glued on either. But there's some absolutely stellar detail here. He's got a pen in his hand. It's actually, sorry, no, it's a protractor, isn't it, for measuring distances? Protractor, I beg your pardon. Yeah, it's like a triangular. I'm sure those amongst you that do map reading probably know more about this than me, but anyway. But no, it's a good figure, and he's got this strange look. He's looking down, and if you look at the eyes, they've captured that brilliantly, actually, with this. Looking down with this look of concentration, Really, really good. one of the best figures I think I've ever had in a kit. This really is excellent. Definitely a progression forward since they did the Spitfire or the Mustang, I think. And then lastly, and this is probably my favourite of all, here he is again, Alan Broadley, the navigator, and he's got a hand on the ladder and a foot on the ladder when the ladder's there, obviously. Isn't this good though? These are really good figures for a standard issue in the kit. Really, really nice. I mean, it's almost like resin. That good. You've got to be a bit careful when you put them together. They went together well, but I had to use a little bit of sprue glue just to make there's some tiny gaps, not big ones. Just a little bit of a tolerance issue, but the overall fit was excellent. This one was all right actually. It was more the pilot. He had a bit of an issue around his waist where the torso joined, top and bottom. So he needed sprue glue. This one had a touch of it just here and there, and the tiniest of tiny little minute gaps. But he's a brilliant figure. He's got his gloves in his hand. Sleeve roll back there. And then we've got the boots, you know. It's gorgeous really for a standard kit, you know, provided pilot. I'm not sure if I've seen a better one, to be honest. Apart from, yeah, the new one, like the F-22 kits that Tamiya have done, they're really nice as well, the pilots. But these have got a bit more detail because they haven't just got a big full face helmet, you know. So yeah, I'm very impressed with them. Very impressed indeed. So I'm going to get these painted up. Hopefully, we will be able to get more of an idea of how I want to do it. I definitely think I'll be posing him, this one, because I think that just animates the model so much more. I think it's a really excellent figure, that. So there we go. So that's where we're up to. Haven't made a great deal of progress since last time, but we've got the pilots now constructed, ready for painting. So I'll get them painted before I show you again, and we'll get on. Now, speaking of paints, my good friend David Mummery, that many of you know, he sent me something very nice little gift a couple of months ago, actually, which I've got to mention. A company called Model Gear. What they do is something very simple, really, but it's very effective. And it's basically, when you've got your Tamiya paint pots, you know, if you've got them in a rack, here's a classic example, you know, you've got them in the rack and they don't have any identification on the top. They just have, alright, it's black. But which black is it? By the way, ignore my number 2. That just means it's the second oldest. But from a distance, you know, you don't know if that's matte black or gloss black or semi-gloss black, and it tells you nothing. And it's one thing about Tamiya's paints which they've never improved, which I don't really understand. Now with these stickers from Model Gear, from a distance, look at what you get. You know exactly where you stand. So X7, we know that's gloss. XF27, we know that's a matte black green. Instantly you've got visibility from a distance. You know, white's another one where you can have a semi-gloss or a matte or a gloss. Here we go. Now, they also provide, this is where I've run out of stickers, but they provide a load of blanks. But here you go. So if I zoom out again a little bit, you can see what I mean, can't you? So these are the ones that are left, that are the less popular colours for me. But you can see we've got an entire page of blanks here where you can write them on yourself. And you suddenly have, you know, it takes just a few seconds, and suddenly you save that time many times over, because suddenly in the future, you know, you're no longer hunting thinking, is that, oh no, it's not the gloss black, it's the matte black, it's the wrong one, I can't find it. Ah! Well, with these you've got instant visibility, haven't you? You can identify straight away what your items are. Something very simple. I mean, you can make these up yourself, obviously, you know, there's all sorts of ways of doing it. But these are nice, they're the right shape and size. And you can just stick them on, as I've done with mine. And I've just found it speeds up when I'm starting painting. I can see at a glance what things are. I don't have to think about it, I don't have to start hunting around. I know which is which from a distance. I can just reach across, grab it and get painting. Worth considering, So that's modelgear.com, I think they call themselves, Model Gear. Have a look at them, look them up on the internet. I'll provide a link below for you. Thank you to David for giving us that. It was extremely helpful, actually. That's definitely speeded up my entire process. I know he's bought loads of these because it's just handy, isn't it? You know. So that's where we're at with the latest update. I'm hoping that you'll see more progress by the next time I do a video. This is at the end of April, beginning of May as we speak. I definitely need to crack on with this, and once I get this cockpit started to take shape, the pace of this build will increase quite rapidly, I think. But it's still going to be, it's a 6-month build for me, this, so I make no bones about it. I'm not going to rush it, and as I said at the beginning, you've got this problem where I go, I see the work I've done, I think it's excellent, then I photograph it, and then I start to question how excellent it is, and thinking, no, I don't like that, that's not right, let's go back. This is what you do, you know, if you're chasing perfection, really, which you never actually quite get to, of course. And here I am worried about all this, subconsciously worried about it. And it's in the cockpit. A lot of this is not going to be seen anyway. One of the other models on the forum, I'm on the Flory forum, Gordon Massey, he's building as well the bomber version of the Mosquito in 32nd scale, but he's doing the Revell version. And he was looking at my work and saying, "Oh, that looks really nice, you know. That's fantastic detail you've done the cockpit." And he was complaining a bit about the Revell kit because it's quite basic, but of course it's very cheap. I think it's about £35. I could be wrong, 35, 40 quid I think. Which is about £160 cheaper than this one, so I suppose you get what you pay for, you know. I mean, it did look crude, I must admit. I can see his frustration, but I think he, like me, he was a bit reluctant to start faffing around with exactly the problems I've just alluded to. And it's like, where do you stop? You know, do you get some 3D instruments? Do you get aftermarket? In his case, the pilot was poor. Pilot and co-pilot weren't good. So you can start buying those aftermarket pilots, and the problem is, I've said this many times before in the past when I talked about stashes. You start off with the £35 Mosquito, which is a bargain. But if you want to make it something really good, then you either spend a lot of time, well, can't be much more than I'm spending, but a lot of time extra and over what you could spend, and a lot of money on all these aftermarket parts. And I said this with my Tornado, I got a £30 kit that became a £150 kit because of all the extras I bought for it. And that's the dilemma, isn't it, I suppose. It's always a problem, really, that we face. But I do sympathise with Gordon for not being very keen on some of this, you know. I start using it and I start thinking, why did I buy this? You know, I'm just punishing myself. I'm not sure I'm going to go for the Eduard zoom sets in the future. I'm not knocking Eduard. They are very good, but they're messy. I don't think I'm going to do it on 48 scale kits anymore. I'm going to try and buy decent kits. All this said, you could argue to my face that actually it's got more value perhaps on his Mosquito's Revell one, which kind of needs the upgraded detail, than this has, because plenty of people have created this out of the box, including Brett Green and co. And it looks absolutely great, you know, it really looks nice. And I'll give you an example. When I talked about combining, I've actually done it on this part here. Let me just show you this. We can see here there's it's like a little control panel. This is just beneath. It's quite small. It's just beneath the co-pilot's navigator's seat. And this was one of those parts that I decided not to include, and I should have mentioned this earlier, not to include the one that came with the kit. And the reason was I didn't like the one that came with the kit. I didn't think it looked as realistic. Okay, so we're talking about this part here, just above my finger, the end one, which doesn't look terribly special to me. Not a lot of relief or contrast compared to what I've done. However, so I binned that one in effect, but at the very end here, right at the end there, that is a little dial, lever and a dial. That is part of the Eduard zoom set. So you can see how I've mixed and matched. I've used the existing there from the Tamiya standard parts. And this is really the crux of today's talk, because this is what's taking the time, you know. And I'm having to assess whether that's really better. Some cases you think, well, that's not better. That doesn't look great. I think that'll just look just like a black mass. Whereas that, with the red, and it's supposed to have these red knobs. Now this does have the red knobs, but you've got to create them with all this fiddle faddling around. I just thought, well, I can just do that, and it will look just as good. It will look just as good, especially where it is. You're not gonna see this with any clarity at all. There's no light on it, and I think that looks absolutely fine. So, you know, you have to think it through and take a view of it. Really, it's kind of the only way. We also got this. This is the top of that. I haven't put them together. The top of the armour plating behind the navigator seat. This is the top of it. It has a little window in it. Now, the only thing I should add that I didn't mention before is that I'm not entirely happy with the decals from Tamiya, which some people won't be surprised about. Not the quality of the decal or the thickness, which everybody moans about. No, I don't know if you can tell in this shot, but it's like a lot of carrier film halo around the yellow. Now, I don't think it matters in this particular application because of the way it's going to be seen. It won't be noticeable. But it's making me wary, so I've now started cutting off all the halo. The excess carrier film around the outside is getting removed. Because I don't want that to sort of blight the way it looks, and clearly they haven't been as judicious, and some of the on that yellow, some of the print registration wasn't quite right either. Again, it's not going to be seen. Nobody's going to see that. I'm telling you about it, but with the naked eye, you'd never see it when it's finished, I'm sure. But it's just sort of set the alarm bells ringing off again. Right, I'm gonna make sure that I cut off all excess carrier film from around these decals. Whether I decide to pursue other decals, I don't know. The trouble is that aftermarket decals. Phil Flory talked about this recently. I'm quoting him again. He said it about a month ago, I think, maybe longer. And him and Matt Ball were talking about it and saying that they felt that aftermarket decals are not as good as they were. The quality seems to have gone down, and I agree with them. I'm seeing that too. I saw it with the Tech Mod ones that I used on the Zero. Wasn't all that enamoured with them. They were better than Edwards, don't get me wrong, but they weren't as good as previous versions I've had from Tech Mod. So I'm not too sure really. But I may look around and consider others. If I could get some cartograph decals, 1/32 for this, then I would probably jump at it, you know. So I've just got to investigate. Some of you will know already probably the answer to that, whether they're available or not. But anyway, I'm rambling on. But yeah, you can see that we have that slight dilemma all the time, you know. Here we've got, if I just pull this up and show you, some other things that you haven't really seen, and that's like the general dust. This is the seat belt. Look how small these are. These buckles and harnesses for the seat belt, or seat belts. Now these are small, yeah. These are very, very small indeed. And again, super fiddly, aren't they? Super small, super fiddly. And then you've got the kit ones, which are over here, which are. They have them all. They're a PE, and to use these, you need to anneal them with a flame to make them softer. But once you've done that, they're probably quite malleable. But you see there that we've got. Just move it down a bit. Sorry, excuse me for a second. It's just that the tape is in the way. Hang on a second. I think it's going to benefit if I just take them out. Basically, there we go. That's better. But you can see that you've got your belts and buckles are all effectively included. So you haven't got to start fiddle-faddling around, you know, threading the belts through the buckles and etc. So this is where time gets just melted away. And this is why I say sometimes it's better to use what's in the kit. Tamiya's PE is pretty thick though, so I'm not sure I will do that really. And I'm not sure that PE makes the best seatbelts at this scale. I think that we really wanted a more of a fabric-y type harness really, so that's what we've gone for. But there you go, you can see how you've got that dilemma, you know, what to use, what not to use. I think you can be your own worst enemy, and I'm classic of this really, in that you can start buying these aftermarket parts, and then you start to sit and look at some of them and think, well, are they actually that much better? You know, I'm going to invest so much time trying to get these to work and fiddle faddling, especially when you've got these little tiny parts that require super glue and they flick off the tweezers. Not much fun, really. So there we go. So yeah, consider it carefully. You know, if the kit comes with fairly decent stuff, I mean, you can argue that the ammunition chutes that I've got, I may not necessarily use them. I'm starting to have second thoughts because I've had a look at the ones in the kits and they do seem pretty good, actually. I brought these resin ones and I'm not entirely convinced that it's going to overall improve my experience. So they might actually get dropped, I have to be honest. But I will be using the metal gun barrels because they're a no-brainer. They are absolutely gorgeous, you know. So that's where we're at, really. So I thought you might like to see, you know, the fact that I am making some effort. It's slow progress, a bit heavy going, you might say. Not the kit's fault at all. It's just my fault, really, and the fact that I think the more choices you give yourself, the more problems and the more decisions you give yourself, and every decision can be the wrong one. Easy to, you don't make any too critical mistakes, but every turn you take could be a bit of a blind alley. You could end up changing your mind and going back to the kit part, and this is the problem with it. You know, I think we've all got programmed by history that aftermarket is automatically better, and sometimes it just isn't, really. Sometimes it just isn't. A lot of it can enhance the kit, certainly, but choose wisely, choose carefully, and don't feel you're under an obligation to use what's on the PE fret, all of it, because it may not be better, and it may just add lots of time and lots of aggravation. And you know, I know that, say, Gordon and other people, people are tiring of PE. I think that its day is probably, its best days are behind it. I think 3D printing and these 3D printed decals you can get now for things like instruments are probably a better bet. I have had a look at a couple of the ones on the market that are 3D printed, but again, I've not been convinced that they're better, that they will ultimately look better on the model. So that's just for you to decide, really, on an individual basis. Anyway, I won't repeat myself. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you thought that was of interest anyway. I know I haven't made much progress, but you can see that there's a lot of thought going into it. A lot of you that have commented have been extremely enthusiastic about the work I've done so far, so I must be doing something right. I have my own system of building kits, really, and it's quite a slow, very close attention to detail system. And you know, people built. I mean, Phil Flory built his in about 5 or 6 weeks, was it? Something like that? Or was it less? You have to times that by months for me, so it's times 4 or 5 at least, because that's just the way I go about it, you know. And I want to build to a certain standard where I'm happy, and I think, yes, that is good enough. My good enough may be better or worse than other people's, and that's just your own system of how you go about it, really. But stay tuned, because there's more coming. I'll be putting all these sprayed on the sprue, painted on the sprue. Disgraceful. I expect to get lots of complaint letters now about that. Some people have a real problem with it. But I've always found it's a very quick way of getting the paint down. As long as you don't use it to completely cut corners and then leave bits of exposed parts that are not painted, then that's not on, really, I don't think. I was watching a build, I'm not going to name it, but I was watching a build of the new Airfix Liberator by somebody recently, and I have to say that, yeah, I was not impressed with the overall look. Was very good indeed, I've got to say, excellent, but when you looked at the very detailed way it was being built, and there was a lot of parts where the clean-up wasn't really being done, and when they'd been cut off the sprue, and I thought, well, okay. But again, each to his own. And you can argue to me and say, well, can you tell when it's finished? The truth is you can't. You know, you can look at somebody's process and you can criticise it, whether it's them wearing gloves or not. I think he should have worn gloves, by the way. Some of you probably know the one I mean. Whether it's, you know, the way you go about it, you know, your choice of lighting, you're using gloves, what paints you use, what airbrush you use, so many options. We all do it differently, but obviously when you're showing somebody that process in detail, this is where people start popping up and saying, oh, I don't like the way you've done that. I think that if you are putting yourself on YouTube as a model builder, then you need to do at least some basic cleanup, and I don't think that was done really. Anyway, that's just me. I'm not naming people, as I say. But I was a little bit surprised. Someone I thought was, perhaps he wasn't as good as I thought he was, this particular individual. And yeah, he's not been around that long now, I think, and I just think there's a lack of attention to detail. But that doesn't mean he's wrong. You know, I'm sure he enjoyed it, and he got it built in probably a couple of weeks. So, you know, not everybody's prepared to give 6 months to build a Mosquito, I suppose. But for me, I want to enjoy doing it, and to enjoy it I have to do it my way. And it's the same for you. If you look at me and think, well, I love what you've done, Peter, but can't be bothered with all that, well, that's fair enough. You know, I completely agree with you. I would understand exactly where you're coming from. And the important thing for all of us is to have some fun, because it's a hobby. That's what it's supposed to be about, really. So there we go, thought for the day. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you'll give me a thumbs up, give me a 10 out of 10. Even though I haven't got very far, perhaps not 10 out of 10 on progress. But at least I've got my men built. I've just got to go get these guys, start painting them up now. I've got some new, what they call the AK Extreme colours, the acrylics, where they do the flesh tones. I've not got them in front of me because they're in the other room, but I'll be using those. So I've got some new paints for the flesh tones, so that'll be interesting. And we will try and animate these guys as much as we can. I think when they are such a nice figure, you sort of feel obliged to try and do a really good job on the figures and the detailing. I'll have to try and see if I can raise my game up a bit. You know, I'm not a bad figure painter, but I probably should spend a bit more time on it, and perhaps maybe I should do that next year and do a bit of figure painting specifically, and really concentrate on it, because it's the faces, isn't it? Always a challenge. Always a challenge. Anyway, that's enough for today. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you thought it was interesting. Please stay tuned. More coming soon. We've got some more new reviews, got some new kits from ICM and others coming through to talk about, and I'm sure we'll find it mutually interesting, and look forward to all your comments. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and if you have, make sure you ding the notification bell to ensure that you get notification of the latest videos when I post them up as available. I usually give about at least 12 to 24 hours notice, but some people still complain that they just don't know, they just don't get the notification. So again, maybe unding your notifications, then ding it and say all, because that will ensure that you do get notified in good time. Anyway, until next time, thank you very much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed it. In the meantime, till next time, look after yourselves. Thanks a lot, and bye for now.